A man can be an artist. And anything. It depends on how good he is at it. Creasy's art is death. He's about to paint his masterpiece.
You got 40 seconds.
Come on.
45.
Last wish, please.
Last wish. I wish you had more time.
Hello, Contrarians listeners, Contrarians watchers, Contrarians subscribers. Here we are with the newest Contrarians warm-up. And this one is our first one, our official first warm-up of 2025 for our official first episode of 2025. And following the tradition of the last 2 years, it is a Denzel Washington movie. It's a movie where Denzel is front and center. None of that supporting actor bullshit that you see in Gladiator 2 or... What else is he, like one of those supporting actors that, like, where he pulls a Matt Damon and he can, like, shows up, steals the show, disappears? The complete opposite of Man on Fire.
Denzel?
Yeah.
Man, I always think a leading man Denzel. But I know your point. There's plenty of other shit that we just popped
what's that
up
Shakespeare one that we did on Patreon? Much Ado About Nothing.
Yes.
I mean, it's not quite a cameo, but he's definitely not.
In a movie of hot people, he sticks out as a hot person. I'll tell you that.
Man on Fire, he's still hot, especially after he shaves, after those first 10, 15 minutes, and when he becomes proper and presentable.
Yeah, he doesn't have many movies since he became Denzel, where he's like, you know, he's not Burt Young. He's not just popping into things, you know?
Yeah, well, we did Bow Collector.
Siobhan Fallon, you know, he's there to stay.
Just the guard in like 2 scenes at the end of a movie. He's like,
hey. Very emotionally attached to.
Yeah. So we did Bone Collector 2 years ago. Last year we did Ricochet, and this year we do Man on Fire. What will we do for 2026? Who knows? Denzel has a wide and varied filmography, so we'll see. But right now, Tony Scott's revenge thriller, maybe that's what you would call it. Man on Fire, a movie that Alex had never seen, and a movie that I had seen a long time ago. It's rotten on the Tomatometer. It's fresh on the Popcornmeter. So, you know, one of those divisive entries in the Rotten Tomatoes website. And we're going to talk about it as if it was really good in Contrarians Corner, because we go by the Tomatometer, not by the Popcornmeter. And then after that, we'll tell you how we really feel. On this warm-up, we're just going to give you a few Rotten Tomatoes quotes. We're going to talk about the trailer. We're going to do the Josh Gad Minute. And we're going to do trivia. All this in a nice little package. So let's get started, Alex. I'm going to do the quotes first. And we're going to start with the consensus. 38% on the Tomatometer says, Man on Fire's solid action and top-shelf cast are undone by a relentlessly grim story that gets harder to take the longer it goes on.
And it goes on for quite a while.
Yes. But now, Alex, this kind of comes on the heels of us doing an episode about Dragged Across Concrete, and which we followed up by watching Brawl in Cell Block 99. So I think that kind of recontextualizes the idea of relentlessly grim when it comes to Man on Fire.
Touche.
I think that maybe this was relentlessly grim, you know, I don't know, 20 years ago, or whatever. But now,
it is funny. The movie does try to like just fucking layer it on, this thing of like, oh, all these kidnappings, and you know, Dakota Fanning gets taken and Denzel gets shot, and like by modern standards, like, I mean, like obviously a lot of like grim movies had been made prior to 03, 04, whenever we're talking about, but like I think just the desensitization of everything today, watching this, it's like
he still kicks ass.
Yeah, exactly. His game is violence, and he's gonna paint his ultimate masterpiece.
I was going to say, Man on Fire in the year 2025, Christopher Walken wouldn't make it. He would be one of the casualties. It's like they make you love him and then they kill him. So I get it. Relentlessly grim, you know, all those years ago, but maybe not now. Got a couple of rotten quotes, actual quotes. I'm going to start with Thomas Delapa from Boulder Weekly, who says, At an excruciating 145 minutes, just an extended play version of Walking Tall. Instead of The Rock exploding after a low... What? Instead of The Rock exploding after a slow burn, it's Denzel Washington's turn. I always get those mixed up. Hang on. Walking Tall is The Rock then, not Arnold.
No, you're thinking of Last Stand.
Okay.
Which Last Stand is awesome.
And Walking Tall is not.
Well, also, he fucked up his reference there because the Rock's Walking Tall was a remake.
Apologies for the interruption. Editor Nerd Scum here. You know what? Alex is absolutely correct. The 2004 Dwayne Johnson vehicle, Walking Tall, is actually a remake of the 1973 absolutely awesome Walking Tall. An exploitation-style revenge film directed by Phil Carlson, starring Joe Don Baker as Buford Pusser. The film is based on the real life of Pusser, a professional wrestler turned lawman in Tennessee, who took on the local organized crime ring and paid a heavy price. The film was profitable enough and popular enough to spawn its own franchise outside of the remake. And it's well deserved because unlike the franchise of the remake, the original trilogy are all great films despite the fact that Baker doesn't come back for the second two installments. However, due to the massive injury sustained at the end of the first film, Buford's entire head is covered in bandages and he's going to have reconstructive surgery. So it doesn't really hurt this franchise as much when they switch out the actor, especially because the actor they replace him with, Bo Severson, is absolutely great in the role too, so much so that they brought him back for a TV series of Walking Tall. Basically, all three of the films are pretty fantastic, and the show, if you can track it down, is pretty good too. And despite the fact that the tone that they go for is much more gritty and harsh and dark and a little more disturbing at times than the Rock film, all of them are worlds better, and I recommend them if you feel like that's something you can handle. Anyway, again, apologies for my interruption. Normally I just throw in an editor's note here, but as you can see, I had some feelings on this. I like these movies a lot. They're good. You should watch it. And now back to your normally scheduled Contrarians warm-up. Take it away, Julio and Alex. Who am I pointing at?
Yeah.
Come on, Thomas DeLapa. Get your shit together. Is it a fair comparison though? I haven't seen it. So.
I think the reason you get them confused, Julio, I had to verify this, but yeah, Johnny Knoxville is both in Walking Tall and The Last Stand. So that's like the through line that you kind of.
So it's not my fault. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. It's old John Knoxville there. Yeah. I mean, you could also say something like fucking. Oh fuck! What was the Dustin Hoffman movie? Watch Dogs. Is that the
Straw Dogs?
Straw Dogs. Okay. Yeah. I mean, any movie where you push a guy to the point of snapping, you can make for this comparison here. But that Walking Tall with Dwayne was 2004. And for some, that movie was kind of viewed as like a bit of a, oh, this guy might be here to stay type thing. So
he showed us.
For those who don't know, we're recording this on the night that Rob premiered on Netflix, and yeah, he showed us all. That's for sure.
I gotta give you props for just referencing the Dustin Hoffman Straw Dogs, despite your love for James Marsden. Because there's the remake with James Marsden that is,
and isn't a Skarsgård in that?
Yeah, Skarsgård is the main bad guy. Well, I mean, there's James Woods could be called the main bad guy there, but Skarsgård is the main offender, I guess. And Lois Lane plays James Marsden's wife, Kate Bosworth.
Oh, okay,
man, different Lois Lanes in our heads.
Yeah. I was just thinking of like time period. I've seen that. Man, there you go. Good example of like, you want to talk about grim.
Yes.
That's the whole point of like, it's there's really no point to remaking that movie because of how grim its predecessor was. And in this case, you know, tying it back to this, you think of a movie like Straw Dogs, you refer to it as grim. And now I'm even like, I was saying that shit about like by modern standards, but even by like early 2000s, this is so stylized and so polished and like so Denzel. Yeah, grim is a really bad way of describing this movie.
You know what? It's grim if you're one of the bad guys, but if you're Denzel, I mean, until you get to the end, you know. But it's actually kind of
as a viewer, it's. I could see where you're like, oh, this is so bad, like the things they use for the story, but like, come on.
Like I watched Straw Dogs.
This is Tony. Yeah, this ain't fucking 120 Days of Sodom we're talking about here, you know. Now there is a real film, Tony Scott's Salo or 120 Days of Sodom.
With the same visual approach, right?
Yes, with like
cuts
the
and
lo-fi, like, the washed out transitions.
Yeah. Now on Criterion. All right, and then the second quote is Jeffrey Overstreet from Christianity Today, who says, "It," and I guess it is the movie, suggests that John Creasy, that's the Denzel Washington character, John Creasy, JC, is a Christ figure, scars, prayers, acting as savior. But where Christ overcomes evil with good, JC uses heavy artillery. Did it ever cross your mind?
No.
But do they have a point? Is this,
yeah.
right? He
Look,
has the.
you can't do that at any point in history and it not be like, oh, I didn't realize what I was doing. At any point in history post the Bible being written.
Right.
You have a character named JC, yes, that with scars on their hands and they're fighting, oppressive forces. Then no, that's wild.
I mean, like the scars is probably the biggest point they have because the movie never even gives you an explanation. It's just like, well, he has them. But
I believe that A.J. Quinnell, who was the writer of the book Man on Fire, probably had more intention behind that than Tony Scott did.
It's a series of books, right? So maybe in the second book he gets crucified, or they put like a crown of thorns.
In the third book, he rises from the dead.
Yes.
I could believe, and not knowing much about the book, if that's exactly how the character's written, I could believe that Tony Scott and the people behind this just translated it cold, and they didn't even think about it until like afterwards. Like, oh fuck, is he supposed to be Jesus?
The Green Mile, John Coffey. I remember that went over my head. And the Green Mile, I mean, he's actually performing miracles.
Yes.
So it's that I can buy a little bit more. And when I read that for the first time, when somebody made that point, I feel actually a little dumb that I hadn't caught it when I was watching the movie. Oh, that's right. He's JC and he cures Tom Hanks's, his urinary problems. And I think doesn't he bring a rat back to life? And he does like, not quite water into wine, but he does some stuff. This one, not so much. But I don't know. I wonder how many JCs in the history of movies, you can just point at and be like, I think I can force a religious allegory here.
John Cena.
Huh? Yeah.
It's a miracle ordained by heaven. This boy is our king.
Well, by Jove.
What's the lad's name?
What? Oh, I mean...
John Cena! Shut the fuck up!
Yeah.
The savior. John Cena, the savior of the WWE.
He was at one point. Yeah.
Well, that's the quotes. Alex, let's talk a little bit about the trailer on the trailer chatter segment. This was pretty straightforward.
Oh, it's great. All the transitions are that lo-fi fucking Instagram filter, which is... I did take note of the top-rated quote on the trailer, the comments on YouTube. Did you read it?
No.
It just works out perfectly for us. I saw Rotten Tomatoes gave this movie a 39% rating, and it's now at 38. Yeah, this is from a few years ago. All caps. Are they insane? This movie is not only Denzel's best, it is in my top 10 of all time.
Denzel's best? I don't know about that. You can like this movie. Yes. The man has made a lot of good movies, including Ricochet and Bone Collector.
The operative pairing of words in that statement are they, which goes back to the entire mission statement of this podcast and our goal of educating those who may not know of what Rotten Tomatoes actually is. This person here, VMI 4172, appears to be under the belief that sadly many folks are, is that Rotten Tomatoes is some sanctioning body that says,
they watch the movie and they're like, feels like a 39%.
39% of this movie is good. So was very tickled by that. But yeah, this trailer is this was like the model for a while, like well into the time you and I worked together at the theater. Of it, the trailer has acts: introduce your main characters, introduce the stakes, and then the third act of the trailer is like a fucking hodgepodge of sequences of things, or not sequences, but flashes of things that happen in the movie,
Right.
and then you end it on a really good quote. And with this one, I can't remember what it is verbatim, but I kind of cited it earlier. It's his game is violence, and he's about to paint his masterpiece.
Yes.
Is the way this ends with Christopher Walken.
A man can be an artist in anything. It depends on how good he is at it. Creasy's art is death. He's about to paint his masterpiece.
Yeah, this was the model for a long time, and this follows it to the T.
You could argue that if Tony Scott had decided to not make any more movies, he could have just continued his career making trailers, because I think it suits his style, or at least his latter style. I was talking about this with our friend and editor Corey, because as I mentioned in the previous warm up, he's the one that introduced me to this movie years and years ago when we lived together, and he pointed out, because I was talking about how I had trouble, and we go into this in the episode. I had a little bit of trouble with the visual aspect of it, that it's just so busy and so just like, oh my God, stop, take a breath, Tony Scott. And he said, well, I prefer this approach than earlier Tony Scott, which is like calmer, right? And he was talking about like Top Gun and Days of Thunder, and my first thought was like, well, I haven't seen Days of Thunder, but Top Gun didn't do anything for me. So if I have to choose between Top Gun and a movie like this, I'll take this. I mean, and then I also said, well, I'm kind of like more middle of the road. I like True Romance and The Fan. Yeah. So this is not the only Tony Scott you're gonna get when you go through his filmography. This is latter day Tony Scott, and I guess I had forgotten that he was a little more traditional earlier in his career.
Last Boy Scout's a good example of like a very just traditional like 90s action style movie, with like the way it's shot and the way like explosions are shot and some of the close-ups and during like fight scenes and shit like that.
The Last Boy Scout.
Danger's my middle name. Mine's Cornelius. Tell anybody I kill you.
So yeah, this is definitely Domino. I've only seen Domino one time. I remember it being a lot like this, with like the really heavy saturation.
Yeah.
And I feel like I remember I screened it, the Taking a Pelham 1-2-3 remake that he did. I feel like that was very lens flare heavy and very like like the erratic cuts and shit like that. So
like the subtitles or the title card saying like, every 2 hours, one train gets hijacked in the United States.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, I like I said, I screened that, so I saw it once, but I still remembered just being very confused by what John Travolta was doing.
Is that Travolta and Denzel, or just Travolta? Okay. He really was Tony Scott's boy. I knew that they made a couple movies together. I didn't realize that they made that many. The one thing that stood out for me watching the trailer is that they tell you that Dakota Fanning is alive. He says when Denzel is setting out his mission, he says, I'm gonna go get her. And I mean, I'm sure by the time that you're watching the movie, maybe you if you're thinking of the trailer, you're probably thinking that you misheard, because in the movie you are under the impression that she died and he's on a revenge quest, not on a rescue mission. The revelation that he's alive comes much later. So
most normal people aren't like me, where if they're really excited about a movie, they watch the trailer 20 times before they go see it. So,
well, also, I think that I understand, right? It probably seems more appealing to go watch a movie about Denzel Washington going to rescue Dakota Fanning as opposed to a movie where Denzel Washington is going to avenge her death.
His ambiguous murder of a child, yeah.
Yeah. So, good call, I guess, from the marketing people behind Man on Fire. But yeah, I watched it and I was like, this sells you the movie that you get. Pretty much. If the trailer is too much, then the movie is definitely going to be too much for you. So just skip it.
You could definitely believe, or you can definitely like envision seeing this trailer on the death rattle era VHSs, like the last like runs of VHS movies that were being released. Like you could see this in front of it. Yeah, for sure.
Now in video.
Coming soon to video cassette.
I don't know. Bodyguards got to be close to people. You know, I'm no good at that.
You're the silent type. People are going to appreciate that.
Peter just wants to be friends.
I regret that your profession needs to exist.
So do I, Marjorie.
Gracie, you're smiling.
Run!
I'm gonna go get her. Anyone who gets in my way, anybody who profited from it, anybody who opens their eyes at me, I'm gonna kill him.
All right. Well, let's go to the Josh Gad minute before we go to trivia, Alex. Josh Gad, let's overexpose him, let's oversaturate him, and throw him in the Tony Scott world. Where are we putting Josh Gad in Man on Fire?
This is a hard one. I mean, you could make him the bad guy, and he takes Mickey Rourke's role. Or one of the bad guys, because there's not just one in this movie. But then we don't get the joy of seeing Mickey Rourke. Honestly, and I'm struggling to find the character's name at this point, but the club owner that Denzel confronts.
Oh.
He's a real bad guy, but he's very disheveled. You know, you could give Gad the 5 o'clock shadow, and I think, is he wearing like a Hawaiian shirt or something? I think like he's a real sleazeball.
Yeah,
who is he's like basically on the verge of tears, pleading like his innocence and shit like that. It would be a very blink and you miss it type cameo from Josh Gad, but like I honestly don't. I don't know. Are there any of the big roles you see him fitting into?
The problem is that, I mean, the problem when if you're trying to cast Josh Gad is that some of the roles are not for Americans. So, because I was thinking, well, he could be the cop, right? The good cop that is hooking up with the reporter, and but that's a Mexican dude. So I mean, I guess you could make him an American that's like an expat that's living in Mexico, but no, what I thought was a Mickey Rourke character, because it just seems to, you know, he has a couple of good scenes. He plays a role in the story, but you're right. Do you really want to take that away from Mickey Rourke? I don't think so.
Especially in 2004, man. The phone wasn't ringing off the hook at this point. So
yeah, man, you could go bold and replace Christopher Walken.
Yeah, but then like you lose out on Christopher Walken.
I mean, Walken will be fine. Walken, he never stops working. He would have just been cast somewhere else. But the hilarity of having Josh Gad deliver that monologue that ends up in the trailer.
Yeah,
this will be his masterpiece. I don't know that I would buy it, but I think it would be fun to watch. Just. I was, you know, when I was editing the episode, I was pulling clips. The opening scene, the opening sequence is just when Denzel, he still hasn't shaven, and he's just at that barbecue with Walken, and Tony Scott keeps cutting to shots of close-ups of Christopher Walken, just having facial reactions to the things that are happening. He's having a good time. He's winking at people. He's smiling. He's like eating, and the contrast between him and Denzel Washington, who's all like pensive and, you know, ask him, do you think we're ever going to be forgiven for what we've done? It's wonderful. And I would like to see how that would look with Josh Gad on the other side.
So maybe we could just do some test screens with Josh Gad and not necessarily cast him, but, you know.
Yeah, we'll just run that scene.
We'll be on the DVD bonus feature, the 30th anniversary one.
There you go. Perfect. All right, that was the Josh Gad minute. Alex, take us to trivia.
Man on Fire was released April 23rd of 2004 in the United States. It didn't get released in the UK for quite a while, October 4th of 2004. Budget of approximately $60 to $70 million. Box office return of a little bit over 130. Dakota Fanning, these are the ones I'm always very excited to recount and recap. Dakota Fanning got a nomination for the Critics' Choice Movie Award for Best Young Performer which in previous years had gone to the likes of Jonathan Lipnicki, Haley Joel Osment. Can you guess the movies on those, by the way?
Was it The Little Vampire and Secondhand Lions?
Jesse Eisenberg in 2005 got a nomination for The Squid and the Whale.
Oh, I've seen that movie. Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah. So, she's dealing with she's in high company there, to say the very least.
I have to say, though, Eisenberg is much older in The Squid and the Whale than any of the other three, than Dakota Fanning, Lipnicki, and Haley Joel Osment in their breakout roles. So I wonder how far they go with the age when it comes to...
Yeah, I'm looking at this now because Paul Dano got nominated for Little Miss Sunshine in 2006. He won, actually. So I guess literally just under the age of 18.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. It also received 2 nominations at the NAACP Image Awards, which were Outstanding Motion Picture, and Denzel, of course, got nominated for Outstanding Actor. Now, Julio, I'm not sure if you remember off the top of your head what movie came out that year that was led by a black man that received a lot of critical acclaim and notoriety. It was a biopic, if that helps at all.
2004?
Mm-hmm.
Ray?
Good one. Yes, sir. Ray ended up taking home both Outstanding Motion Picture and Outstanding Actor in a Motion Picture. So, Jamie Foxx.
They cut to Denzel, and he was just like,
fuck. Jamie Foxx double dipping in the picture category. Ray, Collateral, Fahrenheit 9/11 was nominated, Hotel Rwanda, and Man on Fire in the acting categories. Jamie Foxx, Don Cheadle for Hotel Rwanda, Mario Van Peebles for Badass, Denzel for Man on Fire, and Will Smith for iRobot. iRobot's not great, but I've never really gotten a lot of people hated it a bit too much, I thought.
I like it better than I Am Legend. I think that those two usually
definitely
are mentioned as interchangeable, but I think iRobot is a lot more fun.
I would agree. Dakota Fanning took piano, swimming, and Spanish lessons for her role, so committed at a very young age to her craft, which I respect. Mexico City police told Tony Scott his crew was targeted for kidnapping, with several crew members being robbed at gunpoint.
I'm not gonna rehash the conversation we had in the episode, but we do talk about the depiction of Mexico and how fair it may or it may not be. And I guess that the report doesn't really. I don't know if it fleshes out the argument or not, but look, I'm from Peru. I spent
self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess.
Yeah, there are areas in Peru that I would give that warning to, especially to tourists, right? I guess if you're Peruvian, you're fine, but if they can tell that you're not from here, you're kind of you could be in danger. So, that doesn't mean that Peru is like a hellhole. It just means that there are areas that you went. So I don't know where Tony Scott was shooting.
Austin. If people came in from out of town that were like, "We're gonna go wander down this area. We're gonna go wander down West 6th Street at 3 a.m." Like, okay, you probably shouldn't do that. So it's it does. That's why I kind of selected, because it adds an interesting little wrinkle to that part of the episode where we spent talking about that. Mickey Rourke and Denzel did not get along during filming. I don't know why, but that doesn't particularly surprise me. If I had to guess, Denzel was taking this movie seriously, and Mickey Rourke was just like, "Where's my check?"
Do they even have scenes together? I don't think so, right?
Yeah, it's certainly not to the extent of like Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray and something. What about Bob?
What about Bob?
I was going to say we need to talk about Bob. Jesus. I've been doing this too long. We're starting to conflate this shit.
Maybe that's why they don't have scenes together, because they couldn't stand each other.
There you go. Denzel worked with a voice coach for 3 months to learn an American accented Spanish, that's the type of thing you don't really think about, because I just assume Denzel's so good at fucking everything that, it doesn't. he doesn't need shit like that. But and then, kind of in the vein of what we're talking about, Denzel was surrounded by bodyguards at all time and had to keep a low profile while in Mexico, which again makes sense.
Can you imagine, like, what a wild story if you know, you wake up tomorrow, you look up at your phone, and one of the headlines is Denzel Washington kidnapped in Mexico.
I mean, that'd be pretty fucking crazy.
You'd be like, well, somebody should have warned him. Don't just walk off on your own.
Yeah, don't be one of those people that just naively thinks you can wander off and I'm just gonna go exploring, see what's going on. Marlon Brando was the original choice to play Rayburn, who is Christopher Walken. So I just allow you to kind of put that in your mouth and wish it around a little bit and see.
I don't like it. I'm gonna spit it out.
I think we're in agreement here that the pairing there works best. But as Julio alluded to earlier, this movie is based on a book, and not just a book, but a series of books. It's based on Man on Fire by A.J. Quinnell, who had a whole series of the Creasy character. It looks like he had 5 books that focused on Creasy. I don't know. I'm sure I could have found this if I dug a little deeper. I'm not sure if the intention was to make this into a series, and the box office on this wasn't like monumental enough to commit to it all the way.
But how? Like, the ending of this movie is pretty final, unless they're prequels, and so you would do.
Well, we talk about in the episode the alternate ending.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, he dies either way, but
maybe one is less ambiguous than the other. I guess you could always, if you wanted to, you could just say, no, you never really see him die.
Oh yeah.
The implication. Well, actually, no. There's a title card that tells you he died, right?
Yeah, in this one. But
yes.
Exactly your point. Or the whole idea of like sequels or prequels, excuse me. Yeah, you could always rock with that. In the chronology of the Quinnell series, though, Man on Fire was the first. Then came The Perfect Kill, The Blue Ring, Black Horn, and Message from Hell in 1996. So,
did you hear that Netflix is doing a Man on Fire series?
Okay.
Well, that was an underreaction.
That will go on their online catalog that some people just kind of circle to and watch maybe once in a while.
I mean,
streaming is where things go to die.
Raw is streaming now.
Yeah.
I don't remember who they cast as a Creasy character. It's I mean, I don't want to be dismissive. Obviously, it's somebody that probably put in a lot of work to get the role. But when the previous incarnation featured Denzel Washington, that's like a tough sell. But they, the fact that they're doing a series makes you think that maybe they're going to be a little more faithful to the book, in the sense that the character's probably going to have a longer life if it's successful. So this dude could end up playing Creasy for like 5 seasons, if there's 5 books. So I don't know. I'm not gonna watch it, but if anybody watches Man on Fire on Netflix, let us know.
Chat us up.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how it plays out.
And last point here, I talk probably more than you would expect me to about the composer on this film, Harry Gregson Williams, in the actual episode. But the film prominently features music by Nine Inch Nails, and Trent Reznor, which I didn't take note of, I guess I wasn't paying attention, is credited as a musical consultant. And Trent Reznor was on stage accepting a Golden Globe last night at the Golden Globes, and is a man who's won Oscars for his music since, famously The Social Network he did the score for. So, I'm not trying to say that Man on Fire was necessarily his foot in the door, because he had accomplished a little bit before then, but an interesting little tidbit, just given the time period or the time frame we're in. Just 24 hours after the Golden Globes last night.
He was consultant, which means that he was just kind of like staying back and watching them do things, and then thinking, I could do this and I could do it better.
Yeah. So. Okay, lens flares. That's great.
Yeah. Well, Man on Fire is a long movie, and we really get a lot out of it on the episode. So be sure to check it out. Coming up next, we are going to go back to superheroes. It's been a while since we've talked about superheroes on the main feed, and it's my birthday is coming up, so kind of as a birthday celebration, we're gonna be talking about Spider-Man, who happens to be one of my favorite characters. So we're gonna be doing Far From Home, the second Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. For those of you who haven't been with us since like the really early days of the podcast, Alex actually liked Spider-Man Homecoming quite a bit.
Mhm.
So this is the follow-up. Maybe Tom Holland can still keep his grip on Alex, or maybe this is where he loses him. But we're gonna do Far From Home, and then we'll close the month with No Way Home, because at this point we just have to finish the trilogy. So if you haven't seen Far From Home, you're like Alex, you're one of the 10 people that still haven't watched that movie. Get it done before the next episode. Watch Man on Fire if you haven't, then listen to our episode, and just be ready, because we'll be back in probably a week or so. So thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.